my name is Paul Del Nero. I'm at 13 Flying Hulls Way, and I've been looking over a lot of the things here. And one of the things that I see with this whole marina, this, like the way that the operations go, is it seems as though I'm dealing with item 5 on this large packet, parking and traffic. And it seems as though there's not much concern for how many vehicles really will or could possibly show up there. On page 9, there's a thing that says that in Port Harbor Marina's advertising, it lists over 700 boats stored on the property, quote, with room for more. That's a lot of boats. That's dry storage. But those boats can come out of dry storage, and people do drive in with their cars to use those boats. Back on page 4, the calculations, which were being disputed, I think, at the last meeting, were of 0.6 cars, parking spots per slip. That's not just the slips that are available. There's also boats, 700 plus boats in that place. People can come and use those boats. I added the 700 to the, I think, 120 docks that I could kind of count, including the stuff that they're proposing in the lake. 820 total. That's a big number. So I said, well, let's cut that in a quarter, just a quarter, and let's take that down to 205 cars. That's a lot of cars. And I wanted to point out that one more back to the page 2, there are 13 boats out of the existing slips, now in that picture. 13 boats are out, and there are 24 cars parked there. That's not 0.6 per boat. That seems like there's, even in this one picture from, it says it's a 2020 picture, but in that one picture, there's twice as many cars as there are boats. And that's just the ones that are in the slips. That's not even counting the ones that could have possibly gone out from the 700 that are stored at that place. It just seems incredible that the parking and the traffic concerns would not be outrageous with this. I'm not in favor of this. I'm against this project. And the parking and traffic just seems totally out of control. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else? Okay, I am going to close the public hearing and ask Will if you would start us off with any changes that have occurred since the last time.
Okay, Will Haskell, acting as a kind of interim town planner on this project. So we received the updated revised application documents. I received them on March 3rd, I guess. I'm not sure when they came into the town, but so I had basically prepared an update to the original technical memorandum. Kind of went down through the new information that they submitted. So I think at the last meeting we had some discussion around the parking generation rates and the use of 0.6 spaces per wet slip and 0.2 spaces per dry slip. The applicant has presented information based on their research in terms of they came up with those numbers based on their research. There really isn't a lot of published. Again, typically we would go to like the Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITE Parking Generation Manual for that information. The challenge with this is that for marina use, they have one project that they've referenced in there. It happens to be that the rate that they recommend based on that one can be around 0.6, so it kind of confirms that number. The question is whether the 0.2 for the dry slips is a reasonable number or not. So we had a little bit of discussion around that. I think there was some discussion from board members about potentially wanting a traffic or a parking study done, but, so that's still kind of an outstanding item, I think, that needs to be discussed. The new plan also updates the ADA parking spaces, so they've added 4 additional parking spaces for accessible use down the driveway along the docks. They have 1 other existing space up by the store, so that equals a total of 5, which, based on their total number of parking spaces, would be adequate. There was some discussion about the parking spaces and potential conflicts with boats being stored. And if you look at some of the aerial photos that are around, there's a fair number of boats that are stored in the area that they're proposing new parking spaces. The applicant has submitted information or a statement basically saying that a lot of their boats are stored on blocks rather than trailers, with basically saying that there aren't going to be a lot of trailers sitting in that area during the peak season when people would be parking there most likely. And then they also say that they lease property over in Casco where they can actually store trailers when they're not being used. So basically, again, my understanding from the last meeting was that the applicant indicated that all the boats and equipment in that area would not be stored there during the peak use of the boating season. They had updated their calculation, or the parking calculations from the first submission. There was some discrepancies in terms of number of slips and that type of thing, so they've got an updated parking calculation in there. There was some discussion, or I had some questions relative to whether there was going to be some additional grading necessary for some of the new parking spaces. They basically confirmed that there would not be. However, there would be some grading and potential clearing to run the fire service out to the new docks off the end of the point there. There's a wooded area, and they're going to be running a fire line out through that wooded area. They've added that to the plan.
Okay, welcome to the May 20th Board of Selectmen meeting. Based on where we are in these times, we're doing this by a Zoom meeting, so couple of points of order. The default mode for people is you're on mute. So if you're going to want to speak, you need to unmute yourself, and then to try and save on bandwidth and feedback, when you're done, if you can remute yourself. A quick way to do that, if you are muted, if you press your space bar down and hold it down while it's held down, you'll unmute yourself. As soon as you release the space bar, you'll be back in mute. So it doesn't work so well on phones, but it does on the computers. So we got a couple things that are going to be happening tonight. So first order of business is we'll move the minutes from our March 10th Board of Selectmen meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion is carried. A second item, we will move into a public hearing regarding proposed ordinance changes and proposed town meeting warrant articles to be voted via secret ballot during the primary election. For the proposed ordinance changes, what I would say we want to do there is we'll bring those up and have Scott give a brief on what the changes are, why they are, and then if there are questions, there people are calling, can call in from the public, can call in and